All right, this is our 2500. So this is a relatively new machine. We had a 2500 series. We traded in and got this 2500 this year. So we've had a lot of problems with this turret lock setup. And don't get me wrong, Trackless has been great. They came up, they did some adjustments, worked on this thing. We had a problem the other day. I got to give Jeff over at Trackless props. He dove into a machine they had in-house to figure out my problem. So in case somebody else is having similar issues, I thought I'd make this video. So this cover right here comes off. There's a toolbox on the other side that you can access, and there's at least 4 bolts. You can see the holes, 1, 2, 3, 4, that you have to access from inside the toolbox to get into those. I actually think that there's 6 bolts because I think that there's 2 that go down through it. So there's 6 bolts, these 4, and then there's 1 right here, and then 1 on the other side. Here's where that mounts, so it's a little tight to get in here to put these bolts in, but you can get in there with a wrench. The cover does kind of hide that a little bit, but you can access this with the scissor all the way down. It's not easy. There's also 2 10mm head bolts up here that go through this tin plate here. So you can get to this with the scissor all the way down and get this panel unbolted, and it slides out that way. So you can get down into here. But this is something new on these machines. This is our 3rd Omme lift, so we're pretty familiar with these. The old style turret lock was different than this. And the problem with this one is that basically this is a spring-loaded switch, and you've got a section of a gear there that goes into the turret gear, the rotation gear. The problem is you could lock this in any position as long as those teeth sat into the turret rotation gear. This could be facing any way, and you could lock that, which would allow this switch to actuate it or go into the relaxed position, but the machine would be nowhere near center of where it needs to be. So Jeff is the one that actually figured this out. They have this second switch up here, which is underneath this panel, that has a plunger. Let me see if I can get a flashlight to show this a little bit better. It has a plunger that goes down into a recess right there in your turret gear, okay? So the problem that we were having is our machine gave us no drive function and no outrigger function, which would normally indicate that it didn't think that the turret was locked, but the turret was locked. We took off this switch and activated it manually to make sure that wasn't the issue. We didn't know where to go with this, and this wound up being the issue. What happened for us is in there, in that recess, which you can see really good right there, it just got plugged up with like grease, grime, and sawdust. So what was happening is that plunger that you can see coming out of the bottom was not activating, was not relaxing as far as it needed to. So I'm just gonna come in here with a scrunch and I'm activating that plunger. It's going all the way down. Everything's fine with it now. What I did is once I figured this was the problem, I was able to put enough down pressure on that to get it outrigger function. I leveled the machine and I rotated the machine. So I rotated my basket that way until this opening right here, which rotates, this turret gear doesn't move. This is stationary, this gear. So I rotated this until this opening was over top of that depression. And then I cleaned all the shit out of it, because you can see you can get right into this turret gear. So there was a little depression. I cleaned it all out, rotate it back. But the main reason I want to make this video is when you go to adjust your turret lock, which we've had a lot of issues with this, and we've had a lot of issues where the guys have had to actually go and wiggle the basket back and forth because we keep losing drive function. And we didn't realize that this was even here. So this turret lock is very adjustable to make sure that it locks nice and goes all the way into the gear, into the rotation gear, the turret gear there. What we have to do, which I just finished doing, is when you set this up, I noticed my arrows here, which this always gets, screwed up. It's just aluminum, branches catch it, whatever. But these were actually pretty accurate. But what I did is I centered this plunger in the very middle, and there's actually probably 30 thousandths underneath this plunger where it could go down even further. So even if we get some shit in there, it'll be okay. We just need to clean this out, you know, probably every couple months, take this cover off, clean this out to keep it from being an issue. We might even be able to rotate the machine and reach in this opening and just reach up and clean that out with the machine rotated a little bit. So that's something I'll probably talk to my guys about doing routinely to keep that depression cleaned out so that it's not an issue. But we centered this first. So now the machine knows that it's directly, that the basket's directly in front, that the turret's centered. Then I came over here and adjusted my turret lock so that it's definitely all the way in. And I adjusted, you know, these bolts here, or these bolts and nuts here, there's 4 of them. And I got this centered so that this goes all the way in. I also lubed the crap out of this. It was a little rusty. And, you know, now it's coming in and out nice. So I lubed the shit out of that. That's something that also I'm going to make sure my guys routinely spray this with some lubricant on both sides here to just keep this turret lock moving smoothly. The issue that we've had with this, that Omme is supposed to come up with a retrofit for this system, is that this going into those gears, they're all tapered gears, and so it really doesn't do a good job of holding the turret in place. Whereas the old pins were a round pin that went into a depression that really locked in there tight, where this could not rotate at all. And it also made it not necessary to have that secondary switch because the pin would only lock in one designated location where there is a depress for that pin to go in. So this is the issue that we had. I adjusted that switch for turret center, basically. Adjusted my locking pin so that that's all the way in. Now I'm going to go ahead and adjust this pin last, or not this pin, this switch last, and I'm going to reinstall my cover back on, and we should be good to go. But if anybody else has this problem, I want to make this video so that you know exactly what we did to address this issue. I'm sure this will take care of it. If not, I'll put a comment in the bottom if I find anything else. But that was definitely our issue to start with, and we'll wrap this up. Have a good day, guys.